Hey, welcome back to Bristol Ink Miniatures. This guy's Mike, and today I'm going to go ahead and paint Invisible Woman from the video game Marvel Rivals. However, it's actually going to be Malice. Wait, you just said Invisible Woman. How can it be Malice? Well, Malice is a skin or a changed appearance of the Invisible Woman character, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I know I am, but I think the general gist is Malice is the manifestation of all of the bad vibes going on with an Invisible Woman, or she attracted some another cosmic region bad vibeness and it turned her into Malice. Not real sure, but it makes for a cool costume. Also, I want to say, holy cow, 1,000 subs already, 1,000 subscribers. Thank you so much. That is beyond, I have no words. I have no words. I'm just blown away by the amount of wonderful comments and encouragement for me to keep going here. Small channel, new channel. I can't even put into words other than I am extremely grateful for each and every one of you. Thank you for letting me say these words in the beginning of the video, but let's get back to the rest of it. Thanks. So today's video, what I'm gonna do is go ahead and take her from screen, print and paint her to figurine. Here we go. All right, normally I do a voiceover. So when I work on the model, I work on it first and then with the recording the video, and then I'll come back later and do a full voiceover of what I had previously done. But in this case, I'm actually talking as I'm working with the model because I wanted to show something that I found very exciting, very cool with this particular model. As you can see, it's literally right out of the curing machine. I have done nothing to it yet. There's still support marks and cleanup that needs to be done. Not a lot, but you know, the typical that amount that needs to be done. But what I wanted to show and talk through just briefly was how well these pieces fit together. I mean, look at this. Oh, this is just so good. I mean, it just fits so nice. I have a little layer line, you know, issues to take care of there, but the way the pieces fit together, there's just no gaps. It's just solid. Oh, it's just so good. Here again, this is, you know, what you would expect when you go maybe to buy a commercial model, you know, like out of the store, you know, there's something like this, you know, you're spending a lot of money for, you'd expect it to fit like this. And it's just so refreshing, so nice to find a model right off the printer that has that same quality of fit to it. Just absolutely love it. That's not to say that I don't have do some work. In fact, I even have to use a little resin. As you can see, the hand fits just wonderful, but there's still a little hole in the back here, right there, the hole, where I'm going to have to, you know, to fill that with resin. That hole is just there for making the part hollow, so when you print, you don't have to use as much resin, so it still has to be covered up. But, you know, that's fine. It's in a nice position nicely where once it's filled, it's not a big deal. But again, it's just, oh, it's so refreshing to have a model that just, like, look at that. It's just so good. So good. And then the head as well, like, oh, it just fits in there just perfect. So super excited about this model. But anyhow, I just, yeah, I had to jump on and do this part, quote, live instead of a voiceover to share my excitement with this. Oh, by the way, this model is from Gaz Miniatures, G-A-Z. I'll make sure I'll put a link in the description to their Patreon where I found this particular model. Absolutely, so far, am in love with the quality of how these, oh, these fit so good. Look at this, look at this, look at this. It's just, oh, so good. No gaps to fill, none of that monkey business. It's just perfect. Love it. Anyhow, all right. I am going to get post-processing here and sanding all the stuff off next. And back to the voiceover for the rest of the, I think the rest of the video. Started with going ahead and priming the model in black like always, and here I'm skipping the zenithal approach and just using a titanium white on each piece separately to go ahead and do pretty much an even coverage across each part. Chose to not do a zenithal this time because I'm going to be placing my highlights in a very specific placement, very specific manner to try to capture that art style of the reference image, reference you know, game footage, if you will. So there's no real big advantage to doing the zenithal.
So you might be asking, well, why didn't you just prime it in white and skip this step? Even though I'm not doing zenithal, as you see, if you spray white over black, unless you're like super heavy-handed with it, you still have black in the recesses, in the deepest recesses, and the creases, the seams. It still puts that little bit of black in there, which is way, for me, way more beneficial to have when it comes time to do the other colors on there. Because if you don't get your colors in every little crook and cranny, it's black, which is going to be a deep shadow color. So it just makes a lot of sense just to, for me, works out well to always prime something in a black and then put my colors over it. I know other people are, I've heard that, they're concerned, well, if you start with a black, it's harder to get lighter colors and that. And, there is definitely truth to that. But, if you put enough layers on top, you can bring that brightness up. You put white on it and then a color over white. White covers black really well, as you can see here. So I'm not overly concerned with not being able to get the colors I want. And in particular, this model, it's got a very limited color palette. We're working with grays and reds and some kind of off black colors in that. So it's not really, of course, a skin color too, but I'm not really overly concerned with not being able to get the colors I want on this model to stand out like they should. Moving on to the skin for the Malice character. So normally I would grab all the skin colors from all the different paint companies and put them all out and start going to town. I couldn't find a skin tone in any bottle or combination of bottles that I was happy with, so I decided to go old school here and start from pretty much the primaries of skin colors and make my own. So I started with the sanguine and this ochre here. It's going to be about 3-to-1 on those. 3-to-1 sanguine, 1 to ochre, maybe even a little less on the ochre. And then I'm going to use a pure white. It doesn't have to be that white, just anything that's pure white. And I'm going to introduce that in stages to lighten the skin as I build up from a really dark skin color up to the level I want. And as far as the blue, literally it was like maybe half a drop of that blue in there just to... there's blue in skin, and it just needs that little extra push in that direction on the color wheel, if you will, to give the shading I was looking for. So again, I'm just gonna kind of like what I did with the white. I'm gonna go through and hit the skin from all angles, get a full coverage with this. Like I said, it's about a 3-to-1 of the sanguine to the ochre. And with this, like I said, just that half a drop of blue in there. And just going to go over the model and hit all the areas of the skin with this darker shade first. And then I'll slowly start introducing more of the white into my mixture and building up the skin. And I'm really concentrating now. I'm already looking where the highlights are going to be. And I'm hitting those highlighted areas and quite a bit on each quote side of the highlighted area. If you think the highlight is like a line that runs, down the leg or down a part of the body, and I'll start with a wide line, if you will, and put this first lighter color there, and on each subsequent colors that come, not colors, but lightness of the skin tone I'll narrow that line to where at the very end with my brightest color, it'll be literally just like a pencil line, almost a pencil line, down, or a spot if it's a point highlight, like maybe on her shoulder there, or portion of her hip or something. So again, every time I come back with a lighter color, I'm adding more white into my mix. A couple times you have to, at least I had to go ahead and add a little bit more ochre too. I found it was getting a little more too reddish, or kind of like pinkish color, too much on the pink. Obviously you want some pink, obviously, but it was going too pinkish. So it's just you have to play it by ear when you're doing these color blends from scratch, and just watch your skin tones that they're not going too far in a reddish direction or an orangish yellowish direction, or if you got too much of the blue, they can go bluish direction. So it's just a balancing act the entire time you're going through this method of kind of quote creating your own skin color. Another challenge for me when I'm making these custom color blends is I never make enough the first time around to carry myself through the entire model. I always have to go back and make a new, quote, batch, if you will. So I try to be very diligent on keeping track of the exact mixtures that I do use. So like I said, the 3-to-1 ratio, for example, because I know more times than not I'm going to have to go back and I'm going to have to recreate that later. Also, another reason to keep track of it, even if you made like a whole barrel of it and you know you had plenty for the whole model, is there might be maybe 3-4 days down the road when you're still finishing up the model and you see a little spot you have to do a touch up. So by that point your mixture is probably all dried up, no good anymore, and you have to go back and recreate a little bit just for a touch up or something. So again, knowing your mixture, knowing your blend ratios is really important for those kind of situations. Again, now I'm just stepping up here to another lighter shade, and I'm narrowing in that band of where my highlights are with the airbrush. Having good airbrush control helps here. I'm not saying I have the greatest control, but practice makes perfect, I guess. So just go ahead and just probably do another 1 or 2 more highlights here yet to go before I get to that final look that I'm looking for with her skin. Moving on to Malice's outfit. In the game and the reference images, this part of her outfit is it's almost black, but it's got this slight purple, deep purple tint to it. So what I started is I used a blue-black color here. I think it was from Pro Acryl. I used a blue-black to paint her lowest part of the outfit here, the outfit that's closest to her skin. Again, I'm really sticking really rigidly to the reference images that I have from the game and just trying to match that as absolutely close as I can. And I'm going ahead and using this blue-black first, hoping that would give me the final result. And it really just dried too straight black for me. So we'll fix that here in a future step. But for now, like I said, I'm just going through and getting those parts. It's not many parts here. And then I'll get to the legs here in a bit. I think I used an airbrush on the legs. And yeah, she's just got little bits and bobs around her shoulders and her arms that need this darker color. Switching over to all the straps and whatnot and those armbands. It's going to look it's going to look like the same color here, but it's not. This is actually a dark neutral gray I'm putting on, and this is not even close to the final color this will end up being. I've decided to take let's go start from the lowest color, and it's gonna be interesting. I'm going to start with the lowest color, and then here in a moment we're going to go put our highlights on, and then we're going to use a glaze to go ahead and kind of bring the highs and the lows together for the final result. But anyhow, I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. Right now, just putting on this dark neutral gray color, and this is going to go pretty much over everything else on her body that hasn't been painted with that dark blue-black that I put on for the lower part of the costume. I come back later and I'll go ahead and paint that center part over her chest, and I'll talk about that when I get towards the end of the video, what I ended up doing with that. And coming to the final part of the step of the painting of her body, going ahead and moving on to, I'm going to be using a Gray Sear, Citadel Gray Sear paint, and I'm putting on my edge highlights here. My most of it's edge highlights. There'll be a few areas that are actually like not edge, but they're still highlight. Anyhow, using this Gray Sear, and yeah, it looks very, very, very stark against the dark gray. That's intentional. I'm going to go ahead and basically what I'm doing is I'm sketching my highlights in. I'm kind of identifying where I want all the highlights to be, calling them out in this really bright color, and the next step after this is done, you'll see how I bring it all together and make it the final kind of more of like a mid-tone gray, with the highlights not being so abrupt and in your face as they are right now. So this is more of like a sketch. I think there's another term for it that's eluding me at the moment, but kind of like just sketching in your highlights rather than them, quote, actually being the highlights. But it's really important that you do as clean a line as possible. I had during this parts of this model, I had painting issues. I just had like my body and my brush control at times were just not in sync, and I had to go back later on and do quite a bit of little cleanup. And I didn't bother putting all that in the video because that's just really boring to watch. But just, you know, it happens. Some days you just have bad painting days. So I had to go back and do a lot of little touch-ups and cleanups. So here, this is the point where we're bringing it all together. So this is like a warm neutral gray color, and this is watered down. It's probably at least 50-50, if not maybe more water than paint here. Definitely more water than paint. And it's just kind of like a heavy glaze. And what this is doing is it's bringing that highlight down into more of a reasonable highlight level. It's not so contrasting, but it's definitely still contrast to the level that you'd want it. And what it also is bringing that dark gray color on these pieces up to more of a mid-tone gray, a little dark on the dark side of a mid-tone gray, I would say. And if you look again at the image, reference image, there's not a lot of difference between these gray and the lower part, the parts that are underneath these parts of the costume. And I decided I needed a little bit more contrast, otherwise it's just it just doesn't stand out enough. So I took a little bit of liberty here, made these a little bit lighter than they are in the image, but you know, not significantly lighter. Also, I noticed here, I think I got things out of order with my video a little bit. I think I'll show it on when we get to the legs. But you notice that the lower part there has got that little bit of a purple tint to it. I did that. You'll see how I did that when I get to the legs here in a minute. But that was already done to the lower part. But again, like I said, I'm just going over this right now with a probably a 60-70% water to paint mixture. So just a little bit ago, I mentioned about what I was going to do with that part in the middle of her chest. Here I just used a Mephiston red from Citadel. It was about 3 or 4 coats on this to get a nice solid red. And the image shows this really intricate design on her chest, and I totally chickened out, and I just left it with the solid red. I was running out of time with the model, and I figured I always can come back later. Now we're switching back over to the legs, and here's that blue-black that I had mentioned when I did their torso. And I'm using the airbrush here because I can. It's the first color to be put on here. I just use a little silly putty to mask off her toes. Her toes are only part of this that's got skin tone on it. And I'm just going ahead and hitting all the areas that are actually that lower stocking part of the outfit, nylon part of the outfit, if you will. And then here's the other leg. It's got more, there's less straps on this leg and more of that blue-black on there. And this is how I ended up getting that little bit of purple tint to it. I used a transparent purple, watered down significantly. It's probably like a 90% water, really reduced. And again, just paint over it. You can see even at 90% reduction, look how purple that shows up. But when it dries very less purpley. It dries very almost a black again, which it lined up great. It lined up actually perfect for what I was trying to achieve. And same as what I did earlier on the straps of on her torso, going around with all these straps that have the spikes on them. And these are going to end up being that same kind of gray. I'm going to use the same technique here of painting them this really dark gray, and then going over later on with the highlight, sketching in that highlight with the gray sear, and then doing that kind of that glaze effect. I was picking off something right there. That's interesting. I forget what. I think I had an errant brush bristle there I had to pick off. And it's just going ahead. It's white there because I had the silly putty over that part of it. So just going ahead and painting that. This leg will have those straps on the upper part of the leg on the left side there. Those will all be red straps, so they don't get this dark gray on them. And speaking of, here I'm using a corn red from Citadel. and they're a little darker, so darker red than my like a Mephiston red or my the red that I normally use from Pro Acryl. And again, just super simple, just base coating these straps in a red color. Nothing real exciting here. You know, in hindsight, I should have put the legs first in the video and then done the torso second, because here I'm showing all the colors I already talked about. But here's our gray seer doing that sketching of the highlights that I did on the torso earlier, and just being, you know, taking my time, getting nice clean lines here, and going back and cleaning them up if necessary. Just where are you going to put these lines? It's really, you know, artist choice here. Whatever looks great to you, you can go nuts and edge highlight both the top and bottom of each of these little straps, or you can just do the tops that I'm doing. I think I did mostly tops. I think a couple areas I decided I was going to go top and bottom. You know, at the end of the day, it's like whatever looks good to you, go for it. You know, it's your model, your vision. I do like staying true to the reference images usually when I do these things, to a point. But you know what? It's a-okay to vary and do your own thing, because you know this is your art, your project. Do what you like. Once these highlights are dry, I'll do the same thing I did in the torso. Come back with that medium gray glaze reduction and go over it all again. So here I'm switching to a Venezian gray, and this is the base color I'm using for all these spikes. And there's spikes everywhere on this model. We got spikes on the gloves. We got them on the legs. We got them on the cape. They're just kind of everywhere, and that's okay. But it just takes time, and you know, be patient. And this is like I said, the base color. Putting all these, getting all these spikes painted. I chose doing a Venezian gray rather than just grabbing like a metallic paint. There's nowhere else I was gonna use metallic, so like, I'm not gonna introduce it now. I'm gonna just do like a non-metallic, light style. I'm not gonna go overboard with going with that effect. I'm gonna, you know, maybe step it up like three times, from base to a mid to a highlight. So it's not really gonna give a massively non-metallic metal effect. But it'll have some of it. And again, if you look at the reference images, it's kind of how it is. And here I'm going ahead and putting a little bit of a red highlight with this pink horror that I've it's reduced a little bit. We got a little bit of water on this, so it's kind of like a again, maybe I guess a heavy glaze you would call it. And I'm just working this up in layers, and I've kind of just looked at the model from how it's going to be a fish standing in the end, like its position, and it's like, oh, there should be a highlight line down this part of the leg and on the back side of the leg, and that's where I chose to put these highlights. Again, with the gloves, I look at where the final position of the gloves are going to be. The light's coming from the top down. This is where I want my highlights of the red to be. Going back to the spikes, and now I start going about a 50-50 here of Venezian gray and the white. And I paint the top half, about roughly the top half of each spike. And this is going to go ahead and start that, quote, metallic look. And while I'm there, I'm just touching up her toenails. She's got like this is just like solid black on the toenails here. And it's time to tackle the cape. Back to a corn red from Citadel, blasting that onto the entire cape, because most of the cape is red. I'm steering clear of areas that like the shoulders, spiky shoulders, and the rings at the end, because those will be the different colors that we've already done. Technique's already done. And I take a little bit of this bold red here from Pro Acryl and just kind of just blast a little bit on the highest points, not much at all. And then back to the same technique that I used on the straps on the torso and all those straps on the legs. Again, just this dark gray to start with on the shoulder pads. And then the gray sear, doing our sketching in the edge highlights again, like you've seen me do many times already on this model. And then complete these shoulder pads with the medium gray glazing technique that we've already done on the rest of the model. and making sure to get on even the undersides, where I'm pretty sure a lot of this will be covered up by the model, her body and hair and all that. But it's still always a good idea just to go a little extra, just to make sure that you got the overlap coverage complete. Go ahead and using that Fenrisian gray again on the spikes, and then the cape's got these rings. We have little spikes on the rings here as well, and the one in the center of her back that I'm painting, as well as the two larger ones at the end of each of the cape tails. And these other little doodads here, these little strappy buckle things here along the way, and those little circular buckle holes, if you will. So again, just take my time. This is a back and forth. Definitely, you need to go back with the red and clean up, do any little touch-ups just to get a nice sharp transition from the red to the Fenrisian gray here. And I think this took probably 2-3 coats of Fenrisian here to get a full coverage on that, to cover up that red. And just, again, making sure you just have nice clean lines between the transition between the red of the red leather, I suppose it is, to the Fenrisian gray metal bits and bobs. And here I'm going in with that 50-50 mix of Fenrisian gray and white, and I'm sketching in, more than sketching in, I'm actually applying where the highlights are going to be. Some of it's edge highlights, some of it's surface highlights. Again, looking at where the light's going to catch it, and again, this is kind of like a start of a true non-metal metallic process, but I don't go nearly as many layers or as smooth of blending as a true non-metal metallic would be. But if I'm looking at that reference image and I can see that their transitions there are what I'm going to call like a painterly style. You can definitely see the transitions. So I'm not overly concerned about having a perfectly blended transition here either. Really just want to capture the gist, the feeling of the model in the game and in the pictures, the reference images. A lot of this is edge highlighting that I am doing here. And here I am going back and touching those areas up. It was pretty harsh transition. And then going ahead and applying some highlights to the red. That I used that pink core again, same highlight I used on the legs. I'm just not excessive here. I think there's 3 or 4 points in total that I went ahead and applied this to the red parts of the cape. And of course, throughout the model, I'm swapping parts and hitting up the smaller parts like the gloves. Gloves got the red around the edges here. And I do the same treatment to the gloves as I did the rest of the model. I'll go ahead and put some edge highlighting of the gray sear around the bands closer to the hand, and then use a Fenrisian gray on those little spiky bits, and just to to complete the model. Yeah, here I'm just same thing we did before. Just showing it here on the gloves as well. And now on to everyone's favorite part, the head, the face. Well, we're going to do the everything but the face here first. So save the face to the end. I want to go ahead and use an airbrush for her hair. Her hair starts off like this a gray sear color, and then it transitions her tips to a really dark gray. But I can't use an airbrush unless I mask off some areas. So what I'm doing here is I'm brushing the gray sear around the very edges of the parts that I want to mask off. So I want to mask off her ears, I want to mask off her face. Those are the 2 areas, all the skin that I've already painted. So when I'm brushing this first, and then I'll have the airbrush kind of overlap the areas that I've stopped with the brush, and I think that makes for a better transition than doing the reverse of trying to do a hand brush to match up with an airbrush. Hope that makes sense. Here I put silly putty on the face and the ears, and hitting the rest of the hair with the gray sear. And then we're using this neutral gray color, which is actually darker than you would think by looking at the bottle. And I'm just going ahead and hitting the tips, doing a nice transition here. And trying to match what I see on the always I'm looking back at the reference image here and trying to match what I see in that image with the amount of highlighting I'm putting on the hair. And now at this point, I bet you can guess what I'm doing. It's the same thing I've done the rest of the model, going around and putting this gray, darker gray color on all the straps and doing the same technique I did everywhere else. It'll be the gray, the dark gray on the straps like I'm doing here. Again, being super careful not to get it on the hair or the skin. Just taking my time here to get a nice coverage. And I think a couple places I might even took a couple coats, which is fine. But, you know, just nice. Jumping ahead to putting all the gray sear, sketching in all my highlights. The lights from the top down, so that's there's a lot of highlighting that can be done here. Just kind of, again, just doing what I think looks good, what it looks like enough. I'm not really worried about necessarily quote accuracy with my light source. I just know it's all, you know, basically coming from the top down. So wherever I put the highlights, I want to keep that in mind, but not, I'm not overly concerned necessarily, as long as it looks good, if that makes sense. I'm leaving some of the darker areas, like, because there's straps on top of straps on top of straps here. We're wrapping her head, so some of the deepest recesses, I'm not necessarily putting this gray glaze onto, just to keep it more interesting and a deeper contrast going on. And the same thing, Fenrisian gray on the spikes. Just being careful and going around each one of those not to get it on her straps. And then after that, going ahead and putting that 50-50 mix of Fenrisian gray and white on the top half of each spike. Now you might say, well, what's the top half of a spike facing straight up? And that's a great question. I don't have an answer for you. Whatever looks good. Look at the model, hold it, say, well, the light's coming this way. I think this might be the top half, and go for it. You know what? And it'll look great. Trust me, it'll look just fine. And then for a last touch on the spikes, and not just her head, but across the entire model, is I'll take that pure white and just put a single line right down the highest point, to the topmost point of the spike, just to give that extra little punch of brightness that the spikes have. I use that sanguine color that I used for part of the skin mixture, and that's the color I've chosen for her lips. They're a pretty dark burgundy-ish color, so I thought, let's keep with the same color palette that we're already using. It looks like the appropriate color. And again, you can see I've got my zoom in goggles here that I'm using to really try to focus, and obviously small brush, and again, just take your time. Just bit by bit, you get the lips put in place. I keep water handy on a brush in case I have to wipe off a mistake. That helps a lot too, just to get dialed in. Her eyes are almost like a reverse eye. So instead of being almost all white with a little color and then a black pupil, it's kind of reverse. Her eyes are fully black. So I'm using this coal black here, and again, just being super careful, taking quite a bit of time here to get in and paint the eyes and around the eyes with her eyelashes and that. And then I'm going ahead and I'm going to build up from this corn red, and then I'll use my my Pro Acryl red. So the corn red is kind of like the bigger part of the eye, and then I'll go ahead and get in there with the brighter red on a tighter area, and making sure just to leave the corn red around the edges, and then the brighter red in the center of the eye to really give it that intense red look there. And again, I think I used 3 coats of this brighter red to really make it pop in there. I think it's looking pretty good. And then again, going in with a pure white here to get those, like I said, they're kind of like a reverse pupil, if you will. And going ahead and putting a little dot in there, and calling her face done. Okay, bases. Bases are boring. I think they're boring. There's exceptions, of course. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what I'm doing here and leave it be. I used my Bambu filament printer, and this printed in 2 pieces, and I glued them together, and didn't even have to do any filling. Just glued them right together and primed it black. And now I'm going to go ahead and take just a pure white color, and I'm obviously not being super super delicate here with my approach, but I'm just pushing this white into the deepest recesses of these rocks. I'll throw an image up here from the original. This is when Malice originally came out in the comics back in, I believe it was the early 80s. And this is the only thing I've got to use as a reference for what this what this base might even be trying to accomplish. And you see in the reference image, it's more of a black and a pink cracking of the ground. I think those are tentacles coming out of the ground too. I have no clue what that's all about. But anyhow, I'm like, well, this is the closest thing I got. I'm going to go ahead and kind of do my own spin on it. And instead of a pink, we're going to make this red. So basically kind of like an ad hoc lava ground explosion, if you will. So that's my thought process of why I chose to do what I'm doing. Putting this white down first is going to be a great base for the red that I'll end up going ahead and putting on here in a moment. By the way, if you find bases more interesting than I do, please let me know. And then, if there's certain techniques with basing that you would like me to cover, I'd be more than happy to. There's a lot of different ways to do basing, and a lot of different materials and techniques and all that good stuff. I just my philosophy, and I said it many times on the channel already, my philosophy is I want to concentrate on making sure the model is where it captures your eye, not the base. So I really always kind of downplay most times I'll downplay the base quite a bit. But anyhow, hey, let me know if you feel different or you want to see something in particular with basing. And after going around and just touching up little areas to make sure I have some solid white in the areas that should be most solid, I switch over to this red contrast paint from Citadel, and I didn't water it down. I just threw it in the airbrush and just went to town on it here. And I'm just going ahead and hitting all the white areas. And I'm not trying to hit the black areas, but obviously you're gonna hit the black of the rock as well. I think it just helps tie it all together. It's fine. It's not, again, this is not the focal point of the model by any means. It's just a base. So again, I'm just going around and hitting all the red areas. I'll hit it, I think, towards the center a couple times just to really make sure the red is super vibrant. Hit it from all the angles. The only thing I don't want here is I don't want any white showing up anywhere at all. So I want to make sure I get all the white absolutely covered. All right, assembly time. I'm just going to go ahead and use super glue. I'm not going to bother with my E6000 because this is an 8th scale model, so it's pretty small. I'm not really worried about any massive weight. All the parts are hollowed. They're lightweight, and I'm just going ahead and gluing each piece. I'll use some accelerant on when I glue her to the base right here, just to make sure that she sticks and I don't have to hold her. And with that, there she is, and this model is ready to be put on display. And here is Invisible Woman, aka Malice, with her Malice skin on. And I'm really happy with the way the model turned out. I would have loved to have actually had a 6th scale version to paint instead of this as an 8th scale, so a little bit smaller than I'd prefer. You can scale them up, but I've come into faceting issues where you got the little pixel sides are showing and it's just not as smooth. So I really try to kind of tend to steer clear of trying to scale up models, and printing them just end up wasting the time and materials. So it was 8th scale, so I stuck with it. And like I said in the beginning of the video, the quality of this model is fantastic. Loved how it fit together. I didn't have to use much. I didn't have to use any filler. It was fantastic. All the parts just fit like you would hope they would. And again, if you made it to the end of the video here, thank you so much. I do appreciate all of you hanging out here and seeing what I've been up to. And again, wow, 1,000 subscribers! Can't believe it. Thank you so much. I can't even begin to tell you what that means and how important that is to me, and how grateful I am to each and every one of you out there. And with that, I'm going to say see ya, and I will be back in the next video. Thanks. Take care. Bye.
So in today's video, I want to go from the screen into 3D print and painting. That was right. I shouldn't have stopped. That was right.